Okay, so we're gonna do a little Photoshop grass work using some of the tools from the other videos. So I've opened up a few images from the grass folder. If you open up all four of these images, and one of them I can see is just a finished rendering that's already been composited. I'm going to turn off a few layers. Down here, there's like the rippling of the water. That's just a separate layer. Again, if you select it by using the move tool, have auto select turned on, it'll auto select that. There's that one, layer 12, and the base spray. Maybe layer 10. Yeah, that should be enough. Yeah, that's the entire rendering. That should be enough to get everything started. So essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to the initial rendering was this was in a water channel, but just say over time that grass started to grow in. You wanted to see what it would look like in the future with this thing's completely covered in grass. So I have a couple grass images. I'm going to start off with this one. So however you like, just drag, move this image into this file. You can either do it by duplicate layer, or I'm going to drag this into here and just drop it in there. And I'm going to hit Control T to free transform. I'm going to make this slightly smaller. And I really don't care about the proportions of the grass. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to move one here. If I still have free transform turned on and I move my mouse over like one of the corner edges, I can rotate it. I'm going to put one here. Hit enter. Copy it. Layer 13 was getting in the way, so I turned that one off. And I'm going to make one more copy, so I'll have a total of 3. I'm going to rotate this one and scale it. And rotate this one and scale it. And where they all overlapped, okay, well, we're going to fix that part. So essentially, I just have the 3. I'm going to drag this one, move this one up. There we go. The 3 basic pieces of grass I'm going to begin to use. So the first tool I'm going to use is the eraser tool. Again, the shortcut for your brush, I'm going to set it to like a fuzzy brush. The shortcut to make it larger or smaller is to the right of the P on your keyboard. It's just the 2 brackets. So I'm going to set the opacity. Let's do somewhere in the 60s is good. Just make sure you're on the correct layer. This is going to be an exercise of like jumping back and forth between layers. Just make sure you're on the correct one. I'll start off with this one. I'll start erasing some of the pixels to make it look like it's blending. One piece of grass is blending into another. And then I'm going to jump to a different layer. I'll jump to that one. Delete some of these pixels. Make sure that it looks like it's blending in. If you delete too much, like here in this case, don't worry about it. We'll fix it. So we'll fix that by using clone stamp. That's good, having all those start to blend together. Now I'm going to trim this up a little bit. Now that's looking pretty good. It's all 3 of them starting to match up. I'm going to take all 3 of them. You can keep them separate, or you could also compress them into one layer by selecting all three, essentially just holding down the Shift key and selecting the three, going to Layer, Merge, Merge Layers. So it took those three layers and it just merged them into one. Bring the opacity down. And now I just want to trim around the outside. So using my polygon lasso tool, I'll start over here in the corner. And essentially just trimming around where the water is located, just to trim out all the water. And this is just a good tool to use, just mainly because your other selection tools, they're at times they're extremely useful, but in this case, they're a little trickier to use. I have to hit the delete key. They're a little trickier to use, mainly because it doesn't have a very defined selection. This is more like of a custom selection. So in this case, it's good to use this polygon lasso tool. Zoom out a little bit, click around it, and go back to where I started. And I want to select inverse and delete that. Control D and bring the opacity back up. There you go, that's a little bit better. We have some filled in grass. So the next thing, let's see, we used this one, so we're good with this one. I'm going to bring this one in just so we can have some grass in the foreground. So however you like, bring that in here. I'm going to scale this down a little bit. Let's make a copy of this. Let me get rid of the copy. For now, I'll just leave it as one. Again, I'm going to use the brush tool or the eraser tool with the brush. I'm going to start off by changing the opacity up to 100, making the brush size a little bit larger, and just getting rid of 100% of these pixels. Just keeping right up until where the edge of the grass starts. Then I'm going to make my brush size a little bit smaller, bring this back down, and start to delete some of these pixels. Shape it a little bit. Then I'm going to use the clone stamp tool again. Just to copy a few of these from here to over here. And then again, using the eraser tool just to very slightly, gently just come in here and just delete a couple of these. And then come over here in the corner and I can use my polygon lasso tool again. Bring the opacity down so I can see exactly where I'm trimming. Delete that. Just have a little bit of difference in grass with the foreground and the background. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the the clone stamp tool again, but this time what I want to do is I want to refine these edges. just so that it's not so clean cut. Just looks, just gives it a very fake look when it's very clean cut this way. So if I go back to the clone stamp tool but use a different stamp, I'm going to use the grass, number 134. You can put it in its own layer if you like. If you're going to do that, just make sure you have current and below turned on. Copy from there. And clone stamp along this edge. Just to give it a little bit more of a natural grown in vegetation look. That way, so it's just not so clean cut. And you can go all the way around, just finishing this off. But it's the same tool. You could also change the way the tool works, the orientation of it. You can see some examples, or rotating it or flipping it, and it'll update the way the brush is starting to work. So there's a few changes you can begin to adjust. You're going to just go back to number 134 to reset it. So that's the way you start to fix this edge. So let's close this. One thing is, now that we're missing some of the shadows, like the shadow back here is gone. So let's bring that shadow back. Temporarily turn that layer off. I'm going to copy and paste that shadow using the my polygon lasso tool to essentially just retrace the shadow. Just make sure you're on the correct layer. Layer 16. Copy. Control D. And go to Edit, Paste Special, Paste in Place. So now if I turn this layer back on, if I move that up, there's the shadow. And I can adjust the opacity. And I'm going to give it a Gaussian blur, just to, it looks a little too crisp. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Just adjust it slightly. I'm going to bring the opacity up just a little bit. So there's that. We brought that shadow back. If you wanted to, you can use the same or similar effects, just to bring back just a little bit of shadow here. Again, just copying it and tracing it. Or another way of doing something similar, you can just make your own shadow. Again, by using, let's see, the paintbrush maybe. Fuzzy brush. You want to adjust your background and foreground layers. Make a new layer, and essentially you're just like, it looks like you're like spray painting over this. Let's turn that on. Bring the opacity down. And let's just, I guess we can use the eraser tool. Let's just delete some of these pixels. It's just a really fast shadow line, but if you spent a little bit more time with it, you can get a better shadow. Bring the opacity down a little bit more. Just a very quick shadow. And the last thing we're going to do, we're going to use this image just to add just a little bit more texture to the to essentially what used to be this water basin. Hit Control T to make this image a little bit smaller. If I right click, I could also flip it, or if I wanted to, I can, if you don't, you can also click on one of these center points and you can flip it that way also, if you're not concerned about the proportions. So let's just do that, make it slightly smaller. I'm going to place it over here in the corner. Let's see, enter. Make sure it's in the correct location within your layers. There we go. Again, using the eraser tool, bring this back up to 100. Delete some of these pixels. Now I'm going to bring the opacity back down somewhere in the 50s. 49 is fine. Now essentially it's just deleting enough of these pixels just to make everything blend in. And I'm going to bring the opacity down just a little bit. Make it blend in with the rest of the image. Bring this back down. Just get rid of just a few more. And there. So essentially, just with a few images, we've essentially just used the a few tools just to turn that basin from water into grass. And using this type of a grass it's much better than trying to render the grass. Gives it just more of a realistic look. But just a little bit of practice with just a few tools.